When I think about an ORM, the first thing that comes to mind is how to perform update and insert statements in the database and how to retrieve a single entity. But what happens if you have to retrieve a complete set of entities given a specified criteria or order, for example? That's one feature that Aurelius shines, which is criteria, and that's why it's in my top 10 Aurelius features. You don't have to add a SQL statement, where statement manually. You simply use object-oriented queries. For example, if I have to retrieve a list of orders, I use the find feature, and this gives us the criteria API for the Aurelius. So, for example, I can use select or where or order by. If I use where, for example, I can simply write the expression conditions in a very Delphi way of doing it. I can put, for example, give me all orders where order ID equals to 30 or order ID is equal to 33, for example, or order ID greater than 50. And this is why I like it very much. You can write expressions using just like a Delphi logical expression with or, and, not, parentheses, and equals the comparison operators. It's very easy to write and maintain, and note that I'm using here the property names. I don't care about the name of the column in the database. That's up to Aurelius to translate that property name to the Aurelius, to the database column name. There are many other. I can use, one interesting thing is that I can use code completion to learn what's available for me. For example, for LINQ company name, I can ask as if it's null, is not null, in, like, contains, starts with, for example, it starts with WAG. So bring me all orders where company name starts with WAG. And it translates, again, it depends on the database, it creates a different SQL statements. All we have to do is worry about the high level API, and we also have order by, company name, and then a call list. And this is the only statement you need to retrieve a list of the order objects with that criteria. We can see how it works in action here. I have this application that connects to Northwind database and shows orders here and order details here. I will filter the orders by a starting date and an ending date and by the name of the country. I can use the fluid interface I show you, or I can use this more object-oriented interface to create the APIs. It's the same thing. In this example, I'm asking Aurelius to retrieve all T-order objects, order it by order date, and then I add the conditions depending on my controls. If, for example, the first T date time picker is selected, then I add an additional condition, which is order date greater or equal than the date specified. The same for the final date. If the control is checked, add a condition order date less than the value. And finally, if the text of country editor is not empty, Then I add a third condition, which is the ship country contains the value of the edCountry.text property. This way, you can see that it's easy to build a criteria at runtime using pieces of it, and again, you don't have to worry about building a SQL statement and building a string, etc. Just add the conditions. We can run to see it in action. Here we have our orders. I can show, for example, just the orders between 1st of January and 1st of May. So the criteria changes. And I can also ask for orders that has Hermann, for example. It lists all orders from Germany. That's the criteria in action. And finally, another tiny feature of criteria API that I like a lot is paging. It's very easy to retrieve paged results with the criteria. For example, if I have my results paged, I'll give you a quick example here. Instead of asking Aurelius to bring all the T-order objects, I can say, please just bring the first 5 orders for me. And skip the first page times 5 orders. This will bring just 5 orders at a time, but will bring the first 5 orders, then the next 5 orders every time I click the button. Let's see how it works. And now we have our just 5 orders. If I click the button, it will bring the next 5 orders in the criteria I have specified, which is after January 1997. Okay, this is a very interesting feature, a feature that we use later in our development after we have already saved our objects, but then when it comes to that point of development, that is very handy to have such a powerful API to bring data from the database. Thanks for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. Please subscribe to our channel to receive updates and notifications about new videos we release about this series or other TMS products. Thank you.